Statistically, gun violence is shown to have decreased over the last several previous years.
Well, we know it has increased. In fact, within the last couple of years that I've been doing this, the data showed us that it's gone from an average of 93 Americans killed every day from gun violence to 96 Americans killed every day from gun violence. I am the volunteer local group lead for Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America, and that's here in New Braunfels. We educate, organize, educate, and sometimes agitate. The research shows us that it's way too easy to get a gun without any checks or training. I think that it's in the news more and on people's minds more. We've had some really horrific mass shootings within the last year, starting with Las Vegas and then Sutherland Springs. Then I think that people are talking about it more since the shooting at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High in Parkland, Florida, because this generation who we've raised to be the lockdown generation, lockdown drill generation, are saying enough. And they're speaking out and they're using their voices. So I think that our gun deaths, gun violence is increasing, but also awareness is, people have had enough. I can't believe that we're talking about this. I taught middle school special ed for 12 years, and I had a 14-year-old student attack and overpower me at one point. And it scares me to death to think about if there had been a gun in that situation. I think it is reprehensible to ask our teachers, who we already demand so much of, to also add sharpshooter to their resume.
There's always going to be gun violence. There's always going to be guns. Even if you outlaw guns in the country, people are going to get guns. They're going to do things. They're going to find a way to hurt somebody else. To me, that's not the issue. The issue is, how do we deter it? And more good people, good guys, trained properly with weapons, with guns, can deter those people from committing what's nowadays called a mass shooting or a mass casualty situation. So I spent 16 years in the military, most of that in the infantry. Out of those 16 years, I spent 3 years on embassy duty, which is providing security for diplomatic facilities and diplomats. And was a member of the NRA since 2010 for 8 years, and I've taken advantage of several of their training programs and seminars in the Houston area. I think having guns in schools, I'm kind of on the fence about it, on how I think it's a good thing. I think having armed personnel, trained armed personnel in schools, it could be a good thing. I don't think necessarily arming teachers forcibly is a good thing.
There's been a lot of people who've talked about, you don't see a whole lot of active shooter events at inner city schools. Why not? Well, they have all that security in place. Okay, they have metal detectors. They have trained qualified security officers. I think that teachers' jobs are to teach. I don't think that teachers' jobs are to be a security force for the school. If a bad guy makes it to the classroom with a gun, we've got all kinds of things that have failed before they even made it to the classroom.
By federal law, schools are gun-free zones. The Texas legislature did pass something called the School Marshal Program that allows districts to decide if they would like to designate an employee to be a school marshal and then be able to carry on campus.
With my experiences out there on embassy duty, I think applying what we did out there as far as internal security would could be applied to schools here back in America with great success. Things like hardening the facility, having the the appropriate amount of personnel who are trained, significantly trained with guns to protect our kids would play a huge role in securing our schools.
I've seen that NBISD at least, is talking about security measures like key cards that only allow certain people to have access to doors at certain times, and I think that is important.
The big argument that you hear about all of these things in schools is, well, I don't want my child to think that they're going just to a prison to educate them. You know what? I'm okay with that.
I would ask them, what do they want to have? Do they want to have less gun violence, or do they want to have less violent crimes in America? Because Great Britain, Norway, all those countries still have a lot of violent crimes. There's a distinction between violent crimes in our country, violent crimes, and gun violence. To me, a violent crime is a violent crime, whether it's a gun, whether it's a knife, whether it's a vehicle.
I know that shootings don't just happen at schools, though. I mean, what about movie theaters or concerts or churches? And how we need to decide as a nation, how do we want to live? Do we want to live where we go from bunker to bunker and everybody's armed to the teeth? Or do we want to enact reasonable measures that don't infringe upon the Second Amendment and keep our kids and our communities safer? That's where we are.